Hey friends, it is the 25th of January. It's good to be with you today, and we are still deep in Job's conversations with his friends, Eliphaz and Bildad today are speaking their responses, third responses, and Job's response to them. And we talked about yesterday in our lesson the consoling of friends and how to do that well. Today, I'll be honest with you, I did struggle with finding that hope, that nugget in our reading. It may appear to you that each day when you come on here, that Lisa and I have just discovered gold with our teachings, with our teaching points, but there are times, to be honest, we struggle in bringing a really good nugget to chew on and to digest a nugget of truth. And today was one of those days. It's just, I told you from the beginning, to me, this is the hardest book of the Bible. It's to me more difficult than Leviticus and Numbers and the giving of the law. It's to me worse than trying to understand war and when they go in and take over the promised land. It's just difficult for me because I just get broken down in all of the exchanges. So I confess that I'm borrowing and I am giving credit to David Usick and Enduring Word, and I put a great link there for chapter 23 of Job, because I grabbed this quote from G. Campbell Morgan, and I've quoted him before, and I really do enjoy his commentary. Suddenly, in the midst of this bitter complaining, there flamed out a most remarkable evidence of the tenacity of his faith. This is of Job's faith. So it was kind of like I was saying yesterday over in chapter 19, where there's just this little glimpse in the middle of all of Job's ranting and rebuttal to his friends. But as for me, I know that my Redeemer lives. It's like there's this pause of, okay, wait a minute. I do know he lives. Okay, so today we see the same kind of reprieve in verse 10, where he says, but he knows where I'm going, and when he tests me, I will come out as pure as gold. So there's that's the fan, that's the flame that comes out of his words, this little bit of hope he has in his situation. He declared with conviction that God knew the way he was taking. He even affirmed his confidence that it was God who was trying him, and that presently he would come forth from the process as gold. And I thought to myself, how differently could our process through a trial be could refine our faith if we anchored ourselves to a simple truth, either based on God's faithfulness to me personally or God's faithfulness in the history of Scripture. Sometimes it's hard for us to just put our finger on God's faithfulness to us. We've been through so many bad things. God is just out to get me kind of attitude. It's very easy to get to that place. I mean, I know friends who I would call them modern day Jobs. It's like one thing after another. You just want to go, really, Lord? And that person is thinking, God is out to get me. This is, I can't trace his faithfulness to me at all. So if it's difficult for you to trace his faithfulness to you personally, where you are right now in your place, in your journey, then look at his faithfulness in scripture. We just finished Joseph's story. Look at his faithfulness to Joseph. Look at his faithfulness to Noah. Look at his faithfulness to Abraham. So trace that faithfulness of God right back to scripture if it's hard for you to trace it right back to your own life. But I love that the way that Morgan put this. God still observed Job carefully and not forgotten him. What a great truth for us to realize when we feel like we are just, no, God just cannot see us. David says this a lot in his Psalms, throughout his lifetime. Feels like God had forgotten him. Why have you forsaken me? Where are you? But his response was, he knows where I'm going. And then God has a purpose in the crisis, and the purpose was not to punish Job. And when he tests me, so often we think, well, God's out to get me. As I said before, he's punishing me for something that I did. He really didn't forgive me when I asked for forgiveness. He did. He did. And I will tell you, the punishment or the circumstances that we might be going through might be the natural consequence of our own sin. God forgives our sin, but he doesn't erase our consequences. And I believe personally that's what he means by the sin will be upon the second and third generation. I don't take that as God's punishing those generations. I take that as and understand that to be there's a ripple effect to our decisions. But Job is seeing and understanding this crisis as a test. So to me, this verse shows a depth to the relationship Job had with God that we don't even see in scripture. If he can discern to the point where, okay, this is God and this is a test. God would one day bring the trial to an end. Trust the faithfulness of God to Job. As in Job's life, if you don't feel at this moment that this trial is ever going to end, it will. There will be many people that we read about in the Bible who had trials, and they do end. And he knows it because he said, I will come out. And he says, I will come out as gold. God not only brings us through the trial, but he brings us out as gold, as valuable as gold. God still valued Job. Only a precious metal is put through the fire. And Peter talks about the fact that our faith is tested in the fire of trials. And when we come out, we are more and more valuable to God. Why we go through trials? Well, we are in a world of sin. Yes. And sometimes our trials are a result of our sin or someone else's sin, for sure. But sometimes God sovereignly allows events to happen in our lives because we've prayed. For example, Lord, this is a prayer that I pray. Lord, don't give me more. This is scripture in Proverbs. Don't give me any more than I need. And don't give me less than I need. Because if I have more than I need, I might think I don't need you. And scripture says, and if I have less than I need, I might steal to get what I need. So there have been times that my family has gone through some financial struggles, maybe not as great as someone else, but we've had our moments where my husband's not had a job for long periods of time. And I do believe that God is keeping his word to me as I've prayed his word. to Him. There have been other situations where I know I prayed this specific prayer, and I saw the evidence of that answer in situations in my life. So a lot of times for me personally, what I've experienced is that I bring and I invite God to send me to a test based on the words I'm praying, because I'm praying these words because I want Him to shape me and refine me to be more like Him, to be presentable to my groom, to be valuable as gold. So I say all that to say, be careful what you pray, because I do believe that's where many of our tests come from. I know that for me personally, that is exactly what's happened. I can trace them. I can trace scriptures that I have prayed that have been proven in my life to be part of a trial, that God willing, I came out polished and shiny and pleasing to my Father. So I'm grateful that we have commentaries like Enduring Word, that we have great Bible commentaries like Morgan that can spark a conversation that we can have about Scripture that's really kind of hard to glean from at times, because this certainly did start a conversation for us today. Y'all have a great one, and I will see you next time on Read Through the Word.